What's going on, everyone? This is John Payne with Cashflow Veteran. I have already had a great conversation that I should have been recording this whole time with one of my real, old-time friends. We go way back, even in our Air Force careers and stuff too. But I got Dave Schulwitz here, man. What is going on?
What's up, John? I'm excited to be here, man. I've recently binged actually to a lot of your podcasts, and I'm really enjoying it. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, you're living up the life in Miami. I feel like you're kind of living the dream that we always kind of talked about, especially as you're getting started. Because we're doing a topic of real estate investing. I know that we're going to dovetail into some other ideas as we get through here as well. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So overall, just what's your general history, your background, specifically about what's in your military background, and then what are you doing professionally today? And then we'll start getting into more of the investing side.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm 34. Or what are you, 35? 34. Okay, so same age. Again, another thing we have in common. But yeah, 34. So I was, in early high school when 9/11 happened. And for like a lot of other guys and girls that got into the military our age, 9/11 for me was kind of the root cause, actually. Because to be honest with you, before that, it wasn't even on my radar at all, military. So 9/11 happened. My first thought was I wanted to be a firefighter because I remember watching it and I was confused and angry and, all these emotions that we all had. And I remember seeing these firefighters run in and I'm like, dang, those guys have some cojones, that is awesome. I want to do something that matters. And so I remember I was going with the firefighter idea for a while and that eventually turned into military. I didn't know anything about the military. I had no previous experience. I had no immediate family in the military. I lived in kind of central-ish Michigan, and there's no big military presence there. And so I was starting from ground zero in terms of learning about the military. I didn't know what the structure was. I didn't know what enlisted officer meant. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I learned. Eventually, I learned about ROTC. At this time, I decided that I wanted to go far away for college just because, not that I didn't love everyone I went to high school with, but I wanted college to be this totally new experience where I met new people. And so I wanted to go far away to somewhere warm, actually. And that's something I still have in my personality. But anyways, I found out that University of Hawaii had an Air Force ROTC program. And an Army ROTC program. So anyways, long story short, I ended up going out to University of Hawaii for Air Force ROTC. Didn't initially have a scholarship, but I ended up getting one, and that helped me pay to go out of state for school. And so that was my introduction to the military. Went through ROTC out in Hawaii. It was a great experience. Glad I did it. I was originally selected for a navigator slot to be in the Air Force. Originally, I wanted pilot. I got nav. I remember being really disappointed about that. So, I was going along with nav, which is other story, probably where I should have stayed. But eventually, I got upgraded to upgraded in quotes. Not that they're better, but I got upgraded to a pilot slot. And so I ended up, I got out of ROTC and I went to Columbus Air Force Base, which I know you're very familiar with.
Yeah. That's where we first met too. So.
Yeah, and to be honest, man, I don't even remember that. I definitely remember you well in Montana, but I don't remember you well in Columbus.
I remember in processing you as one of like the transition people while I was there. I remember doing that, but then I also remember I can't remember if I was in the transition status. I think I was at the transition desk when you went to ICBM training too, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and another long story short, I failed, man. I failed. And I think it's something as I get older, I think I'm more comfortable to talk about, and not just this failure, but other failures. I think if we're not failing in life, maybe we're not trying big enough things. But anyways, so, I went into pilot training. I got a good ways. I got about halfway through and, done with solos and stuff like that. So I got to take the T6 up by myself and do all those fun things like I know you did too. And, but yeah, man, I failed. I had a bad week where it was just like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, boom, 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 like failed ride, riding with the captain, riding with the major, riding with the colonel. And yeah, man, I remember, by Friday night, I was out looking for a new AFSC, and that was a gut punch. It was the first real gut punch in my life. And for a while, I didn't like thinking about it, but anyways, from there, I went to missiles because I still wanted to deal with a weapon, as weird as that sounds. I thought if I wanted to be a doctor, or if I wanted to be an accountant, or if I wanted to be some other career, then why wouldn't I just do that outside of the military? I got in the military because I want to be part of national defense on the first line. So to me, I wanted some sort of job that dealt with a weapon. I don't know if that sounds weird, but anyway, so I went with nukes and went to Vandenberg. And there, actually, that's kind of my memory of you, because I knew you, but for some reason I remember like talking with you in the locker room at the gym at Vandenberg.
Yep.
Yeah. So went through.
I was going to say, I do remember you at Columbus, because I was kind of on my way out, I think, when you were getting there, and or somewhere in between, or you might have started. But then that's where I remember Will Hinchy, and there's a few others too that I kind of remember on the way out as well. But yeah, but then obviously once we all got to Vandenberg and stuff, because I was there for an entire year for training, basically 6 months in like transition status or whatever. And then we finally actually, and got a chance to get to know each other. We ended up being able to go up to Malmstrom together too. So
me too. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was at Vandy with you, kind of at the same time there, overlapping at least. And that's kind of part of the time when I started to discover and be more interested in real estate investing. I specifically remember reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I started reading that towards the tail end of college. It was a book that my ex-lady had on her bookshelf, and I was waiting for her one day, and the title caught my eye, and I remember I started looking at it and decided I wanted to read it later because it kind of piqued my interest. But anyway, so I read that book, and then I remember I was renting a place in good old Lompoc, yep, California, and I remember this one day sitting down on the couch, and I was going to be the weirdo that went through this rental contract that I signed for this rental I was living in Lompoc. And I was going to read the fine print of every little line in that like 12 or 14 page contract or whatever. Like it took me a couple hours because it was like 8-point font. And I remember getting done with this contract and thinking, if it's a game of kind of me versus this landlord, I know I'm simplifying things here.
Yeah.
But if it's a game of me versus this landlord, I'm not on the right end of this. Like I want to be where he's at, because everything in this contract, not everything, but a large majority of it was slanting in his favor. And I remember thinking, holy crap, I need to look more into this real estate investing stuff. So yeah, I just got more and more interested in it. And eventually it got to the point where, at the tail end of Vandenberg there, I knew, I was like, all right, when I go up to Malmstrom for my first, operational assignment, I definitely want to buy property to live in, and hopefully buy more than that, but buy property to live in instead of rent, because I got to get into this game.
Yep.
So so yeah, did 4 years of 4.5 actually of missile time at Malmstrom, Montana with you. Had a lot of good talks with you in those 490th offices. Those were fun memories for me. And then so after that I went Air Force RTC instructor down at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. That was awesome. Did a 3-year assignment down there. Got my MBA in the evening, which was free actually, because I was TCU faculty again, air quotes. And so I was able to get my MBA for free. And that's something that kind of made me giggle, because I know how you feel about higher education. And I actually agree with you, but I'm kind of addicted to college. I don't know. I love college, man. It's weird. So it's funny because I still have my GI Bill, and I'm looking at a master's in real estate development now in Miami, just because, I don't know, like I said, I love college, and I still have my GI Bill to use. But yeah, after 3 years of ROTC, they gave me Barksdale. And I said, I got 9.5 years. They actually just told me I was going to be a major. And I was like, you know what? This is the time. I'm going to punch. So that's my military life.
And people told you that you were crazy. Why would you get out? The pension. Oh my gosh, you could have retirement and benefits. Right. You could have it all.
Right. The benefits, man. Yeah. You have free health insurance for these 6 kids that you don't have.
Yeah. And I say that in jest because I go, yeah, all the things that are keeping me from getting out and being the best possible version of myself from my 30s to my 40s, where I can do a greater impact for my family than all of those benefits could ever touch, if I know how to apply myself.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Right on, man. So we talked a little bit about the history and the professional stuff today. So, and then obviously really started getting into the real estate side, the investing side. So how'd you actually get started with the real estate investing portion of it? You touched, a little bit of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I had a similar experience with that. When I picked up that book, my entrepreneurial type stuff really came from my Amway experience originally in Mississippi when I was at pilot training. And then it kind of grew from there. And it ended up just not doing that. Just there's obviously problems and stuff that I had with it, but it certainly planted a seed and kind of blossomed from there. And then reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you remember AJ Varantraj.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's one of the big guys because he was actually playing the board game Cash Flow 101. And I kind of just pushed that off or whatever. I got a copy myself. I actually got the kids versions. My kids actually love playing the kids version.
Love it.
And then you actually introduced me to Bigger Pockets later on. You're like, hey, have you checked out this thing? I was like, no, not at all. And so I had kind of a similar experience kind of leading up to it and just started diving into those forums, diving into YouTube, looking at as much stuff as possible. But what about you? How did you actually get started in real estate investing, and what was some of your first deals?
Yeah. So, got started in actual action in Montana. So again, the education kind of started in California in my, I was probably 23, 24. And then once we got up to Montana, so I married a college sweetheart, sweet girl from Hawaii. And why I'm mentioning this is, she was on board as well when we got up to Montana, that, with this real estate investing idea of buying a property. And man, I remember when I got up there and we started to look for properties to buy, my mind was totally on cash flow. I was basically sorting these properties, which we were going to live in, which we were going to own or occupy and buy with a VA mortgage. I was totally sorting these properties, if you will, by cash flow. And so as you can imagine, I was kind of looking at some smaller multifamilies in Great Falls, Montana. And man, some of these places were bad. I mean, like, I remember going into this one place, it reeked like cat piss. It was terrible. And I'm going around these, possible houses, possible rental properties with my then wife. And this poor girl is just looking at me like, are you kidding me? Are we going to live in somewhere like this? So anyways, I kind of got some sense knocked into me. I definitely wanted to buy, but the first house I bought, after she had knocked some sense into me, was a single family house, good old 3-2 cookie cutter right off a base.
Yep.
And that was the first property that I bought. And, looking back at it, was it the very, very best rental property to buy? Not really, but it was that pushing over of that first stone of momentum, get a property, experience it, learn some things, go from there. You know what I mean? So, so we got into this house, and I still remember, getting those mortgage statements in the mail. This is my first house. And I remember looking, okay, like, obviously we all know how the interest and principal work on the mortgage at the beginning. You're barely putting anything towards that principal. It's kind of frustrating. But I remember looking at the statement.
By design, by the way.
Of course. Yeah, they're going to get theirs before you get yours.
That's right.
Yeah. But I remember, even saying that, I remember looking at these statements thinking, hey, at least this month, this small amount of money is going towards my piece of paper, not the bank's piece of paper. I loved that, and then came tax time. And at tax time, of course, I kind of read about this stuff in the book before I got my first property. But once tax time came, I thought, holy cow, I can deduct this mortgage interest. I can deduct my property tax. I have this thing called depreciation. Didn't know that existed when I was renting, but now I'm writing off depreciation. And so, I started to get more and more hooked on this idea of owning property and owning a lot of it. I started thinking that was a good idea. So anyways, long story short, a couple years later, I'm a single guy. We won't get into that. And just
hey, I've been there.
Cliff notes. So a couple years later, I'm a single guy in Great Falls, Montana. And I'm thinking, okay, now it's just me. I don't care where the heck I live. If I have a roof over my head, I'm good to go, is kind of what I was thinking. I don't need like a nice house to live in just for me. That's just the way I was approaching it. And so when I was single up there, then I used my second VA loan to buy my first duplex. So at this point, I've got 2 properties with both with VA loans. I turned that first single family into a barely cash flowing real estate investment, but it was cash flowing. And I get into this duplex, which we later referred to as the dupe. And I got into this duplex, and it was perfect, man. I had a family already on one side of it renting out when I bought it. The other side was vacant, so I moved into that side. And then I kind of took it to an extreme. Some may see that, okay, I had like 3 bedrooms over there and even like another creepy room in the basement. And so my dumb, single, desperate, young officer brain said, okay, I'm going to move into the ugliest, smallest room in this house, and I'm going to rent these other bedrooms out to dudes at work. And that's exactly what I did. So I moved into, the captain's closet in the basement and rented the other rooms out. And man, that property was literally paying me like well over $1,000 to live there. So, not only did I get rid of my housing expense, I was literally getting paid more than $1,000 to live somewhere. And I'm not even talking about the equity or the tax write-offs that I was getting. So at this point, I'm like, holy crap, I need to do this as much as I possibly can. So I was living like far below my means. Shout out to Steve Kim, F-16 pilot. Yeah. I ended up buying Steve Kim's $700 3-cylinder car that was sitting in his driveway. One of the cylinders was broke. I don't know anything about cars, but apparently it was basically a 2-cylinder car. So I was basically driving like this high-powered go-kart, like on to base every day, as like a senior captain. Like I'm doing okay, a single senior captain. Yep. And I was driving a $700 car on to base every day. And you know what though? I just owned it. I was just like, you know what? Right now, I want to focus on investing as much of my income as I can. And I'm in Great Falls, Montana. Who am I trying to impress? You know what I mean? And I just kind of owned it as like, that's my thing right now. I'm the captain driving the turquoise Geo Metro. That sounds like hell, So
Well, that's what I think. Well, that's what I think with with Jackie and my wife and stuff too. It's like, there's certain things that I am not able to do because that she's not within her comfort level to be able to do that. But one of the things when I went to go teach a lot of the young lieutenants that were getting ready to go up, and I wanted to give them some of that financial, and I always used you as one of those perspectives. I was like, understand what your comfort level is for what you are trying to do, and do that in a way that accomplishes your goals. It may not be down to the level. And I want to paint this picture too, because we're talking your monthly budget for living was $1,250, if I remember correctly, right? You drove a green Chevrolet Geo, right?
I think it was Geo Metro.
A Geo Metro hatchback green. You put a mustache on it to truly own it, right?
Thank you.
And
Thank
just
you.
puttering along doing this thing, and you lived in a 6 foot by 8 foot closet, essentially.
The captain's closet. Yes.
And you did that for years, at least 2, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I go, like, you have to be willing, especially when you're young, especially when you're single, when you can, that's when you pay the price. You don't have, that way you don't have to later on. You can live like no one else today so that you can live like no one else tomorrow, right? Or however that saying goes, right?
Exactly.
And so that's where me being able to describe, because my wife was like, why is he even doing that? That sounds crazy to me. Like, we have a kid now. You think we're going to do that? No way. And I get that. I understand where she's coming from, but it's a way for me to kind of talk to her about, okay, when do we pay the price for certain things? When, after we have lived a certain lifestyle and we have debt because of it, how do we come back from that? How do we actually reorganize ourselves in a way where we have sacrificed some of the things that we can do because we wanted to live a certain way in the past? Now we have to understand that, we have to accept it and find a way to do something different. And I think that's one of the things that I just tried to find all these different ways, and why I got really interested. And it's why I found some of the other strategies that we can get into here in a sec as well. But I guess before we do that, what are some of the lessons that you actually learned from real estate investing in general?
Yeah. And just real quick on that to kind of wrap up, your thought there. So like you said, I think it was like a year and a half that I was just living like stupidly below my means, to the point where you could easily make fun of me. You should have made fun of me, and people did make fun of me. And I just owned it. I'm like, yeah, I know it's ridiculous. But what I'm getting at here is, and kind of what you said, that allowed me, like that last year in Malmstrom, just from that lifestyle, that allowed me to buy 3 more duplexes after that in 1 year. And with those three duplexes, I was having to put down 25% on these duplexes, which if I hadn't have been living that way, there's no way I could have done that.
Right.
And so again, just to kind of circle back on what you said, it's a constant push pull on that, you living below your means, but holy cow, if there's any veterans out there that are younger that, are in an area where, they're not necessarily trying to impress anybody. They don't have any expensive, tastes or anything. Live way below your means. You're going to thank yourself so much in the future if you can do that now. But yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry, man. I forgot your question now.
No. Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. I'm glad you rounded that out. I have a good friend of mine from back home in Mississippi that I think they flipped probably 15 houses at this point, and they've also raised 5 kids, and they've had kids like, being inside. Like if your spouse is on board, like more power to you. Mine, I love my wife to death, but she does not have the same interests that I have. She certainly hasn't taken the libertarian pill the way that I have either. And so she's on her own journey for a lot of stuff. And, we love each other. We have the values where they matter, and we love raising our kids together. But, there's no way I'm getting her to do something like that the way that my friend did. There's no way I can, but I think we have to reconcile that we at some point have to live under our means in order to get where we want to go. Having that high time preference and delaying that gratification, I think, is the quintessential attitude that you have to have if you're going to build something from an entrepreneur perspective or from an investing perspective.
Yep. Yep,
so
totally.
To go back to the question though, it's just like, what lessons have you learned? So we talked about that episode, and I think that's a great first lesson, but what are some other lessons you've learned from real estate investing?
Yeah. Holy cow. So many. And, I kind of was trying to think about this before the podcast, and there's been a lot. So one I want to definitely hit on is the jack of all trades, master of none idea, in that real estate investing is definitely it's a large beast that's both a science and an art. And there's so many ways you can make money or build wealth in real estate. It's absurd. There's so many ways. You can wholesale. You can just buy, properties that are already rented and good to go, long-term holds. You can flip. You can burr. You can be a realtor. You can, be a bird hunter you can be a contractor. There's so many ways that you can make money from the asset class of real estate. And you already mentioned Bigger Pockets, my favorite source of information, by the way. I'm looking at a Bigger Pockets video or listening to a podcast probably close to daily, if not a few times a week. And it's great, but it's also possibly dangerous if you're not careful with yourself, because you can so easily get that shiny object syndrome where, okay, this week I'm going to be a property flipper. I'm going to flip properties, and you get all into that. You spend a bunch of time learning about it, maybe even spend a little bit of money learning about it. And then you get distracted by something else. Oh, actually, wholesaling seems better. I don't need any money to get into wholesaling. So then you learn how to be a wholesaler. So what I've learned, one of the things I've learned is that, kind of maybe introduce yourself to different ways you can build wealth in real estate. But after a little while, pick one, maybe max a two, but I'd rather have myself and everybody pick one and just focus on that and try it. Push that first rock over, get your first experience in it, get your feet wet, learn some things, try to improve upon it with the second deal. And you know what, later on, if you want to switch paths, great. We're all, it's 2020. We're all switching paths a million times. But try to pick something in real estate and become more of a master at it. Because man, it is an easy subject to get distracted in. So that's,
The best analogy that I've heard came from one of my real estate investing mentors, and they specialize in lease options. And I mean, they're crushing it. It's crazy how awesome they're crushing it. But they'll do some general stuff, but they go, while you're surveying the ground that you're getting ready to dig, make sure that when you start to dig, you're not digging an inch deep and a mile wide. Make sure that you're digging an inch wide and a mile deep. Get into it. Then you can build, if you want to build another foundation that builds on top of itself and put in other structures, other vehicles, other whatever, partnerships, private equity firm, whatever you're starting to tie in, after you have that root that's driven down, you can then start kind of branching out.
Yep, exactly. And to kind of piggyback on that, kind of another related lesson is just maybe humble yourself a little bit and understand that you probably are not the best person to do every aspect of your real estate investing strategy. For example, if you're going to flip a property, if you're going to burr a property, buy it, rehab it, rent it, refinance it. So you're basically flipping, but you're going to keep it for a long-term investment. So if you're buying an ugly house and fixing it up, maybe you're the best person for your strategy to find that property and to analyze the numbers. That's kind of what I like to do. I geek off on that. But I could also spend my time learning how to be a better carpenter. I could also spend my time learning how to be a plumber, an electrician, a property manager, a certified appraiser. So many ways you can go with this. When what I'm getting at is be comfortable hiring people for what they're amazing at. You know what I mean? I would rather be the chess player that's kind of moving the pieces in the place that they're experts at, instead of me trying to do everything about that project. Because if I tried to rehab my property up in Detroit this last summer all by myself, number one, it would have looked horrible because I'm not great with hammer. But even if I was good with a hammer, I would have saved some money, but I would have not had the experience of looking for and hiring contractors, which, holy cow, that's not easy. I would have been slower. You know what I mean? There's so many, just focus on what you're good at and hire people for what they're experts at. So that's kind of another lesson I've learned over the years.
Yeah, right on. No, that's all awesome stuff. So what are you doing today? So now you're down in Miami. You're a realtor that's down in Miami. Are you you specifically kind of focusing more on the residential side of it, and then maybe go to commercial at some other point in time later? And obviously you're still doing investing. So what are you kind of doing currently? And then what are you doing in the future? What your plans are for the future for real estate investing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, even as of a year ago or 2 years ago, I didn't really expect myself to pursue this path of being a realtor. My original thought with it was, okay, if I want to continue to buy ugly houses, fix them up, and either sell them or rent them, and I know how to look for properties, why am I going to pay a realtor 3% on every property I want to buy? Now, a lot of people are probably going to say, well, as a buyer, you're not paying that 3%. Well, actually you are, because, at the tail end of things, the seller is paying that 6%. But if you can represent yourself as the buyer, you're kind of getting a kickback at the end, which is basically saving you, 2 or 3%. So my original idea was, okay, I want to get licensed as a realtor just so I can represent myself in buying these ugly properties. And I got into it. I took the classes. This was just this year, January, February. I was in the classes. I took them here in Miami, and then I took the test right afterwards. And kind of when I got into it and when I started thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? Why don't I give this a shot and see if I like the life of being a normal realtor? Maybe I want to do more than just represent myself in my own deals. So kind of the funny thing about this is I got licensed and I got this idea, and then this thing called COVID-19 came along.
Yep.
And I literally signed with the brokerage that I'm working with down in here in Coral Gables on March 2nd. So I'm just kind of getting my feet wet and everything. And then all of a sudden this thing came along. So right now I am enjoying helping out buyers and renters find places that they want to live down here in South Florida in the Miami-Dade County area. And to be honest with you, I don't know, man. I don't know, 10 years from now, I don't know if I'll be a full-time realtor. I don't know if I'll be focusing on the investing side. I don't know if I'll be doing something cool in digital marketing, kind of like what you're doing. But I'm enjoying it right now. And I genuinely have a passion for helping people. And I feel like I know a little bit about real estate. So when I'm able to combine those things of helping somebody out by just having a conversation and real estate, that's what being a realtor allows me to do. And so far I'm really, really enjoying it. But yeah, I'm going to continue to invest. That honestly in my mind is kind of number one, because my goal really is to establish as many passive cash flow streams as I possibly can. Like everybody else, if I have a choice between working and not working for a stream of income, I would rather not work.
Yeah,
that sounds better to me. So as many passive cash flow streams as I can create, the better for me in my mind. And so definitely investing in real estate long-term is what I want to continue to do. My favorite strategy for that is the BRRRR strategy: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And so when I moved down to Miami here in June of 18, I started, to be honest, I took like a year off. And again, what allowed me to do that is those properties back in Montana. Wasn't living a lavish life, but I was able to scrape by, and I wouldn't have been able to scrape by without those duplexes. So I took about a year off, focused on like learning more about my health and nutrition and stuff like that. But I also focused on learning as much as I possibly could about BRRRR and how to BRRRR. I'm originally from Michigan. I've always been probably biased, but I've always liked the Detroit market. There's a lot of bad things, but there's a lot of opportunities there. Sorry about that.
That's so good.
There's a lot of opportunities there as well. And so I decided that, okay, I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can about BRRRR, the BRRRR strategy. And so, yeah, this last, in 2019, I went up to Detroit, bought a ugly property, and went through the whole process A to Z, BRRRR'd it. It, like most other first rehab strategies, I took longer than I thought I was going to take.
Yep.
Spent a little bit more money than I thought I was going to spend. But you know what? In the end, it worked out great. It's cash flowing really well for me. And I've learned a lot of lessons from it that I'm confident I can apply to the next one. So I want to continue to do that. It's a strategy that I so believe in. So if anybody's out there, looking for a strategy, I definitely recommend going to like Bigger Pockets and having David Green or Brandon Turner explain BRRRR, because it is a powerful strategy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so I did want to talk about this a little bit. Where I'm at with the just my mindset on the market and stuff like that too. But like, where do you think we're at as far as market health and the real estate cycle? I kind of think that the bubble from 2008 was shifted into the bond. And so I do think in the future, we're going to see when the market does crash, because it inevitably will, that it'll be, I think there will be a lot more cities, kind of like Detroit earlier within the last 10 years. But I think a lot more cities and pension programs are basically going to go defunct, and they're going to have to declare bankruptcy to get into it. But what are you, I mean, just in general, the market, and more specifically just real estate from what you're seeing kind of on the ground?
Yeah. No, it's a great and obviously complicated question. And not to sound like a cop-out, but just, before I say this, understand, and I'm not saying you, I know you understand this.
Yeah.
But understand how local real estate is. So what's happening here in my backyard in downtown Miami is going to be possibly very different from what's happening in Detroit, to Great Falls, Montana, to Austin, Texas. These are all individual markets with individual, things going on. So just understand that, if you're somewhere out there and wanting to know what's happening in your backyard, get in touch with somebody that knows what they're doing, and they'll be able to help you out with that. With that being said, complicated answer. So I'll tell you what I see happening here in Miami. So it's very interesting. When COVID hit, what we saw is obviously we had a lot of sellers who had just put their houses on the market, or families who were thinking about putting their house on the market to sell very soon. COVID hit and they said, oh my gosh, this is scary. Nope, don't want to sell right now. So we saw we saw inventory go down big time. Okay, so like overnight, like inventory went way down because people thought this is a panic. I don't want to sell my house right now. And not only that, but other families thought, I don't want random interested buyers who I don't know coming into my house. Maybe they have this virus that I'm hearing about on the news. Maybe they're going to get my kids sick. No, I don't want to sell my house right now. I don't want random people looking through my house. So we saw inventory go way down. Now, what everybody was kind of waiting for around here is, okay, we hear about unemployment going way up. We hear about inventory going way down. We're all kind of like, everybody here in Miami was kind of waiting like, okay, when is this going to crash? Prices are about to crash. Everybody get ready. Prices are about to crash. And again, I mean, I was watching this, man. Inventory came way down, but prices, and again, speaking about Miami, prices did not really come down. And now we're in, what are we in, June? Now we're in June. Man, like May, June, we're on the way back up again. Stuff is going up. We're not even close to going down. We're not even close to steady. We're back up to prices are again increasing. Now, what's interesting, however, is rents here are going down. So I wouldn't want to be a landlord in Miami because the rents are going down. So it's very local. And the other thing I want to hit on too is it depends on what segment of the market you're looking at. Okay. Down here in South Florida, the brokerage I work for is in Coral Gables, Florida. Prices are high. A $1 million house in an area called Coconut Grove, outside of Coral Gables, $1 million house does not look like what I grew up thinking $1 million house looked like. $1 million house is a very much cookie cutter 3-2. Not say it's a nice house, but just an average 3-2 in Coconut Grove, you're looking at $1 million. And so what I'm getting at here is different segments of the market, in my opinion, are going to do different things. The high luxury market, somebody who before was willing to pay $1.5 million for a single family residence, if our economics continue to go down, or if we have continued unemployment, whatever it is, in my opinion, we may see more correction in that top luxury market to come down a little bit. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be able to buy a house that was 1.5 before you're going to be able to pick it up for 300. No, but maybe that house that was going for 1.5 is now going to be 1.2. You know what I mean? And on the other side of that, we all know, and we've all heard about, we have nationwide, we have an affordable housing issue. Okay. There's a lot of people out there who need a safe, clean place to live. And those are the kind of rentals I like. Nothing crazy, but it's a safe, clean place to live in an average neighborhood. You know what I mean? And our population in the US is continuing to go up. That's not debatable. And we already have a housing shortage of affordable housing. So in my mind, cookie cutter 3-2s in average neighborhoods, I love that investment long term, just from looking at population projections and looking at the inventory nationwide that we have of affordable housing. You know what I mean? So, And again, just one more thing on this, like this also comes back to, as an investor, as a landlord, have reserves. That's why we've been preaching this all along. You can't ride as a landlord with your pants down with no reserves. Crazy stuff's going to happen. You know what I mean? We're going to see years where we see dips. Maybe normally you get a max of 3 weeks vacancy. Okay, maybe 2 years from now, guess what? You're going to see a 3-month vacancy because something crazy happened. Can you handle that? If you can't handle that, you're not doing this right. You know what I mean? So this comes back to the original idea. Have some reserves. Crazy stuff's going to happen. But in the long term, I'm going to bet on affordable housing every day of the week.
Yeah, right on. No, that's awesome. All right, man, we're going to shift over to the burst fire questions. So answer these as quick as you got, as quick as you can. So what's been the toughest thing about being a real estate investor throughout this whole time that you've been one?
Yeah, this was a tough question for me to think about. I think what it is for me is that when I'm looking at a property, for example, I'm looking at an ugly house that I'm thinking about buying. I think one of the toughest things for me that I'm still trying to perfect is being brutally, objectively honest with myself and not sugarcoating any numbers or any aspects of the deal. And not only, and I'll add to that also, like if you are hiring contractors to fix up an ugly house, maybe you really click with a contractor. Maybe you're like, man, maybe he, leaves the house after you get a quote and you're like, I feel like I could have beers with this guy. Like he seems to know, he seems to know what he's doing. And yeah, it kind of makes you want to hire these people. So I'll just say remaining brutally honest with yourself because if you're hungry for a deal and you're going through numbers, you're analyzing numbers on a possible investment that you want to buy and fix up, and you're hungry for a deal, like you want to do something, you're getting antsy. It is so easy to be like, you know what? I know I've got like right now my budget is $40,000 on this house to fix it up. But I really feel like, we could get those cheaper windows. They'd be okay. And, I could actually do a lot of this yard work and landscaping myself. I'll save $1,000 there. Maybe I can actually get this thing to 37. And, I love spreadsheets. I know you probably do too. So then I plug in 37 into my spreadsheet and voila, all of a sudden the deal is like right in your strike zone, right?
Yep.
That's so easy to do. So I think it's important it's great if you have other investor friends that can keep you honest. If you can't keep yourself honest and be like, hey man, take a look at this spreadsheet for me. What do you think? Am I being too rosy glasses here? Am I being too optimistic, or do you think I have this right? That's hard because like I said, sometimes you want to do a deal and I would rather see myself and I would rather see any of my friends avoid a bad deal instead of getting into something that you're drowning. And a month into it, you're like, dang it, I shouldn't have got this.
Yeah, I encourage a lot of people just, I don't know, it might've been Dale Carnegie or whoever else said it. Like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And like, when it's coming to that concept that you just described, like I just go, if you're building something and it's worth it to have the best life possible that you can have, and you have a set goal on income or whatever the case is, like you need to give yourself the right mentality and the right type of people that are in your circle to have no BS when it comes to what you're supposed to be doing. Get rid of all the yes men out of your life when it comes to, I mean, it's okay to be friends with those people, but they're not the ones that need to have an opinion, or that they can have their own opinion, but you shouldn't be listening to them or taking their advice when it comes to whatever endeavor you have. You need to surround yourself with the right people for the right type of business or the right type of investment that you're putting your money and your time into, because they're not going to be there when it comes down to enjoying the fruits of your labor, but you're sure have paid the price of taking someone's advice that you never needed in the first place.
Yeah, totally, man.
All right. So next quick question then, what resource has helped you probably the most in business? And I think we've probably already covered that for sure.
Yeah, this was the easiest question for me. Definitely BiggerPockets. Holy cow. There's a lot of other resources out there, but for anyone interested in getting into real estate, if I could tell them, or if I could suggest 2 sources for them, hands down, biggerpockets.com, amazing source, which is free to learn about any area of real estate investing. I mean, it's a great resource. They have podcasts, they have articles, they have forums. I love the podcasts. But yeah, definitely check out biggerpockets.com. And then the other thing I would pair that with is joining a local, maybe not joining, but checking out a local meetup or a local, what they call RIA, Real Estate Investment Association, in your area. So, like in Great Falls, for example, I don't know that we really had one. There was a little get together at a coffee shop or something, but more so in mid-sized cities, there's definitely going to be a RIA or a real estate group of some sort. And maybe right now during COVID, it's not really happening. But when we get back to a normal life, hopefully, definitely go to these events. Have a beer with these people. Ask what they do. Ask what mistakes they've made. Ask, if they know a good contractor. There's so many endless resources you can get from these groups. So I would pair that local real estate group with bigger pockets, and right there you can learn so much.
Yeah, right on. All right. So last burst fire question here. So what do you think holds military members, spouses, their dependents, and veterans back from actually starting in whatever endeavor that they're getting ready to go?
Yeah. The biggest one I remember, like talking to other talking to other veterans that were kind of asking me about how I did it and what I did and things like that. The biggest roadblock that I kept on hearing was, okay, but what happens when I PCS? Maybe I PCS 6-7 states away or a couple oceans away, possibly. What happens when this tenant in my property is not paying rent or tearing up the place or causing havoc? What am I going to do? And honestly, before I started looking into real estate investing, I didn't even realize these like companies or service existed either. But property management is a great tool that active military members and veterans probably could benefit from using. And let me say that I have never, besides collecting rent from from the dudes at work when I was living in that little duplex, I have never done property management. And I'm not saying that's the right way to go. I probably could definitely learn some things by managing my own properties. But for me, I love it. So just real quick, like kind of the industry standard is usually 10%. So, if you've got a property that's renting out for $1,000, you can kind of expect, no matter where you are in the US, that the property manager is probably going to want $100 of that 1,000, 10%. But in return for that, they're taking care of basically everything. I mean, every relationship and every contract is different, but they're going to be the ones that are finding the tenant for you. They're going to do the background checks. They're going to do the credit checks. They're going to help you select the tenant. They're going to collect the rent. If the toilet backs up and explodes in the middle of the night, they're getting that call. You're not the one getting that call. And so they're your boots on the ground for 10%. And to me, that's totally worth it. And to add on to that, when you're looking at a possible property as an investment, run the numbers expecting that you're going to outsource your management. That way, you're only buying properties that you can afford to do that anyways. If you're buying a property that doesn't cash flow, with just sacrificing 10% for management, you're not buying a good property. You know what I mean? So I would say just understand. In the management of this property.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry, you cut out there a little bit towards the end, but shouldn't be a big deal. I can edit that out if I need to. Not a big deal.
Sorry about these freaking beeps. I silenced my phone, and I don't know how to make my MacBook Air not get my phone notifications.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't either. So there's that. So before I kind of go to this last question here to kind of wrap up everything, I know we had talked about before we got on the recording about kind of IBC and some other stuff, but were there any specific questions you wanted to ask about regarding that, as far as, because I know you started looking into it a little bit, but.
Yeah, you're a lot further down that path of education on IBC than I am. I've learned enough to know that I definitely want to do it. We can just hit real quick that it's the overall idea of you're basically getting into a product where you can long-term be your own bank. So if you and your family see that an opportunity is sitting there, you don't have to go to the bank and beg to Mr. Manager that you're a good candidate for this loan. You can have the ability to use your own capital, which, has built up over time, to take a loan against yourself, and pay yourself back instead of paying a bank back. So, like you hit on, it's a powerful strategy, but I think what's most important is that we find somebody or anyone finds somebody that knows what they're doing as far as structuring that loan. Because you don't want to buy just any life insurance policy. You want to go with somebody who specifically knows how to structure these loans.
Yeah. And so with Nelson Nash Institute at infinitebanking.org, they specifically have their certified trainers because they have the life insurance vehicle that they use, the whole life insurance policy that they have, but they make sure that those people who are practitioners of it, those insurance agents that are going to be building the package, build it the right way. And so they go through a whole seminar certification process. So if you or whoever else is listening to this, it's infinitebanking.org/finder. And you can actually find, I actually go with a guy named MC Laubscher. He runs the Cashflow Ninja podcast. It's kind of where I got Cashflow Veteran podcast idea from to begin with. But he's really the one that I found. I really resonate with him. I read all of his stuff. I'm part of one of his wealth networking groups as well. And I love his content. And he's very much, in line with the idea of, IBC is about seceding from the current financial system, about the banking regime, the banking cartel we currently have. And for me, with like veterans specifically, this is where I think it's good to house hack it and you can use the VA loan as a tool. I actually still think using a VA loan or using FHA is a moral hazard because you tend to go into some of these regions or locations where you have a military base that provides, artificially, because of the amount of money that gets pumped in from taxpayers into the incomes of the military members to the base contracting and all that stuff. While it does seem to a city to be a net benefit that the city can grow, it's still artificial because it takes from a tax basis of federal funds in order to pay for it. So when people do go in there who wouldn't otherwise have 20% to put down, it does inflate the prices. And from what I've seen, whether that's Columbus, Mississippi, whether that's Great Falls, the average income for a lot of these places is not very high, which is why the BAH, the housing allowance, is so low. And yet you still have people that are raising the overall prices of housing. It's almost outpricing the local population that actually lives there from being able to do that. And to me, I think there is a bit of a moral hazard that comes along with the FHA loan policy and the VA loan policies that are out there, which is also, lending to everybody you possibly can is not the best strategy. Actually, that's what built the 2008 bubble when they started funneling and making the CDOs and everything else that kind of came along with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, man, it kind of comes back to as well, just the overall idea of affordable housing as a long-term investment.
That's right.
Some markets going up and leaving a lot of people behind that maybe they're not even part of the military, but they live in that town. And suddenly they find that this housing that used to be affordable is no longer affordable.
That's right.
I think it's pretty telling that somebody like Warren Buffett, I don't remember where the exact quote was, but I believe at one time he basically said if he could and he had the means to, he would just buy like hundreds of thousands of single family homes, like 3-2 cookie cutters, if he could, if it made sense. If he had the systems and logistics to do that, he believes in it enough as a long-term investment. So I think I'll believe in affordable real estate as an investment until the day I die. I really believe in it. I love it.
Yeah, well, everyone's got a place to live. The idea of American home ownership and having your castle is a product of the 1940s and 1950s post World War II. That entire idea of pension systems, the American dream, that is all a marketing idea from the government and the specific government incentives they gave to the banking cartel at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I the other thing that makes me sleep well at night, knowing I have, a good amount of capital and investment in real estate, is, we think about all these things that we've invented ourselves out of. Netflix, basically making video stores non-existent. Uber basically making taxis, and they're existent, but they're definitely have taken a hit. Zoom, or, all these other companies allowing people to so much easier work at home, and their employers being okay with that, which then their employers are possibly able to lease or own less office space to hire all these workers, right? But what I come back to is, how in the world are we going to invent ourselves out of shelter? I can't think of a way where we can invent a way to sleep in our iPhones at night. You know what I mean? I can't sleep in my smart TV at night. We're going to always need shelter, and that's why I love investing in shelter as an investment, because I don't see a way how we're going to invent our way out of this.
Well, that's a whole nother podcasting topic that I'll have you back for sometime. Yeah. So maybe that's what we'll tackle, some of the future problems or whatever too. Right. Maybe we'll talk about, because one of the common comments I get all the time from a libertarian perspective is like, well, who would build the roads? How are you going to have security? It's like, well, people have been working on that. People are doing that. People are finding private free market solutions to all those problems in the middle of the current market right now. So, those, let's explore those. Let's just not throw out some euphemism and expect, we're just not going to talk about it anymore, because those solutions are out there right now, getting worked on and being implemented, doing all those things. So, so last question here, man, where can people find out more about you and your business? And if you don't mind, anybody that does listen to one of these podcasts that wants to reach out to you, I hope you feel okay, having that contact information out there for them to, if they have a question about real estate investing or the BRRRR strategy that you talked about, where can they reach you?
Yeah, 100%. So, even if it's just for a conversation, I'm totally down with that. I just wanted to quickly say, like, if there's a veteran out there or something, or somebody interested in getting in real estate investing, I am absolutely open to a phone call or an email or anything like that to just discuss and bounce ideas off of a property you're looking at. What I wanted to say is, it's important to understand, not all realtors understand what properties might be best to invest in. They're so used to, okay, this person wants granite and an updated kitchen and this many square feet, and they like wood floors. Like, this is the yard that they think is pretty. Although those things may be important, you need a realtor who has some experience, or at least knows how to analyze the deal in a different way in terms of looking at it as a long-term investment. Right. So even if you're going to live in this thing yourself for 3 years, but then after that you want to rent it out, I think it's important to work with a realtor who can help you analyze that deal and who can help you possibly to prevent you from buying a deal that doesn't make sense as a long-term investment, because they don't all make sense as investments. So feel free to get a hold of me. I can definitely help you get in touch with a realtor in your area for sure. I can throw my phone number out there. I don't care. I don't know if you do.
That's up to you, man. That's a dangerous proposition. But.
Yeah, I don't care. It's 305-333-8663. Just say, hey, but yeah, definitely reach out to me. But yeah, Dave Schulwitz. So DAVESCHULWITZ @gmail.com. And then I'm like a 12-year-old girl on Instagram. My thing on Instagram is david.s.real.estate. So yeah, reach out to me. Like I said, I just love having conversations with people about real estate and trying to help them out. So don't be shy.
Yeah, well, hopefully you and I can get together with a few others and actually build. I have an idea called PCS investing as far as a course goes, and just really kind of getting into some of the strategies that are out there too, and just going line item by line item and just trying to give as much more of a plan and a platform that someone can literally just take into a PCS and just absolutely crush it for real estate investing, and help them kind of get out of the need for having a VA and use it as a tool to actually provide that safe, clean, affordable housing that you're talking about as well, and actually getting that mindset done too. So, well, Dave, man, thanks so much. It's good to hear from you, man. It's good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Any parting shots, any parting words or anything?
No, hey, I just want to say, keep up the great work, man. I think, in a day like today, we could either spend our time watching something like Dancing with the Stars or, listen to a podcast where we can actually get some valuable ideas from. So I just want to say I'm enjoying it. Keep up the good work. I'm loving what you're doing.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.